You've heard a story like this before, right? A charismatic leader comes out of nowhere, unites a people, and then one single tragic flaw brings it all crashing down. Well, today we're going to dive into one of the most powerful and, honestly, most human versions of that story ever told, the reign of King David. It's this incredible tale of faith, ambition, murder, and the fallout that just rips a family and a kingdom apart.
Our story kicks off with these words, a cry of pure, genuine grief. David says this when he finds out his predecessor, King Saul, and his best friend Jonathan are dead. But here's the kicker, the part that's so fascinating. These exact words are going to echo back at the end of his own life, but in this tragic, deeply ironic way. So let's see how it all got started.
All right, so picture this, total chaos. Israel's very first king is dead on the battlefield, the whole nation is reeling, and there's this massive power vacuum. And right in the middle of all of that, that's where David's long, messy journey to the throne really begins. So David's first move as a potential king, it tells you everything you need to know about him. A messenger shows up expecting a huge reward because he's bringing the news of Saul's death, and even claims he's the one who killed him. But David does the exact opposite of what he expects. He has the guy executed. Why? For daring to kill the Lord's anointed. It's a genius move, really. Part real faith, part brilliant political theater. It immediately makes him look like the loyal successor, not some power-hungry usurper.
The next few years are just a masterclass in consolidating power. First, his own tribe, Judah, makes him king. That, of course, kicks off a nasty civil war with what's left of Saul's family. David's side keeps getting stronger, and what do you know? His rivals start getting assassinated, which David makes a big public show of mourning. Eventually, all the other tribes come over to his side, and his final stroke of genius, he captures Jerusalem, a city that belonged to no one tribe, and makes it the capital, a single unifying center for everyone.
This is really the peak of his rise, the moment it all comes together. He brings the Ark of the Covenant, the very symbol of God's presence, right into his new capital. He's so overjoyed, he's literally dancing in the streets with everything he's got. His wife even gets embarrassed, but he doesn't care. At this moment, he's not just the political king, he's the spiritual leader. He's got it all locked down.
And just when you think it can't get any better for him, it does. This is the absolute high point. God himself makes a promise to David, a covenant, saying his family, his dynasty, will rule forever. Can you even imagine getting a guarantee like that? So let's recap. United Kingdom? Check. Capital city? Check. Military victories? Check. A divine promise for the future? Check. He has everything. What could possibly go wrong? Famous last words, right?
Well, this is where it all starts to fall apart. The entire story, everything he built, pivots on one single moment of boredom, a casual glance from a palace rooftop that's about to unravel it all.
And here's the key detail. You can't miss this. The story makes a point of saying it's the time when kings go forth to battle. But where's David? He's chilling back in Jerusalem. He's not where he's supposed to be. And in that moment of idleness, he sees a beautiful woman, Bathsheba. He asks about her and finds out she's married, and not just to some random guy. She's married to Uriah, one of his absolute best, most loyal soldiers. Does that stop him? Not for a second.
What happens next is just this downward spiral of terrible decisions. The affair leads to a pregnancy, so now he's got to cover it up. Plan A, deception. He brings Uriah back from the war, figuring he'll sleep with his wife and everyone will think the baby is his. Problem solved. But Uriah, the guy's got too much honor for his own good. He refuses to go home to his comfortable bed while his men are sleeping in tents on the battlefield, so Plan A is a bust. Time for Plan B, murder. And the way he does it is just chilling. He literally writes the guy's death sentence and makes Uriah carry it to the front lines himself. Unbelievable.
So David probably thinks, phew, got away with it. He marries Bathsheba, they have a son, but God sees everything. He sends the prophet Nathan, who is incredibly clever. He doesn't just accuse the king. Instead, he tells him a story about a rich man who steals a poor man's only little lamb. David, the king of justice, gets furious. He says the rich man deserves to die. And that's the moment Nathan lowers the boom. He just looks at him and says, "You are that man."
Now, to his credit, David completely breaks down. He repents, so his own life is spared. But the consequences? Oh, they are inescapable. Nathan lays out God's judgment, and it is brutally specific. He says, because you used the sword to murder an innocent man, the sword shall never depart from your house. This isn't just a punishment, it's a curse, a prophecy that's about to come true in the most horrific way. And it doesn't take long. The prophecy starts unfolding right away. The first terrible blow is the death of the child he had with Bathsheba. But that's just the beginning. The violence that David committed in secret is about to explode out into the open, right inside his own family.
The sword strikes. David's eldest son, Amnon, attacks his own half-sister, Tamar. It's horrific. And then Tamar's brother, Absalom, just stews on it. For 2 whole years, he plots his revenge. Then, at a family feast, he has Amnon murdered in cold blood. The royal family's dysfunction is now a public spectacle of violence.
Absalom goes on the run, and David is heartbroken and angry, but he does nothing. Think about that. This is the decisive man of action who forged a nation. But now, as a father, he's just paralyzed. He doesn't punish Absalom for the murder. He doesn't reach out to him. He just lets this poison fester in his family, a decision that's going to have catastrophic consequences for everyone.
Yeah, because that kind of wound, that deep family resentment, it doesn't just go away. It grows. It turns into something way uglier. This private family tragedy is about to become a national crisis. We're talking full-blown civil war.
Absalom eventually gets to come back to Jerusalem, but David refuses to even see him for 2 more years, and that seems to be the last straw. Absalom starts this brilliant, patient political campaign. He hangs out at the city gate, meets people who are there to see the king, and says things like, "You know, your case is good, but the king's too busy for you. If only I were in charge." He's charming, he listens, and little by little he steals the hearts of the people away from his own father.
And then, bam, he springs the trap. Absalom goes to Hebron, and get this, that's the exact same city where David was first crowned king, and he declares himself the new king. The rebellion is so huge, so popular, that David, the giant slayer, the great unifier of Israel, is forced to run for his life. He literally flees his own capital city on foot, weeping as he goes. The mighty king is now a refugee from his own son.
So this is it. It all comes down to one final, tragic confrontation. An army led by a son against an army loyal to his father. The entire kingdom hangs in the balance.
But as his troops march out to fight, David's not thinking like a king. He's thinking like a dad. His last order to his generals is a desperate plea. Deal gently with the young man Absalom. You can just feel the conflict inside him, right? He's a king who has to win this war, but he's a father who is terrified of the price of that victory.
And Absalom's end? Wow. Talk about irony. He was famous for his glorious long hair. It was like a symbol of his pride and vanity. And wouldn't you know it, that's what gets him killed. He's riding under a big oak tree, his hair gets tangled in the branches, and he's just left dangling there. David's ruthless general, Joab, finds him. He heard the king's order, but he makes a cold calculation. The security of the kingdom is more important than the king's feelings, and he kills Absalom right there.
So when the news gets back to David, his first question isn't, did we win? It's, is the young man Absalom safe? When he hears the truth, he is completely broken. The victory is meaningless. The kingdom is saved, but his son is gone. And his cry of grief is one of the most powerful things you'll ever read. It's the sound of a father whose success has just turned to ash in his mouth. And so, we end up right back where we started. The mighty have fallen. David gets his kingdom back, sure, but his family, his house, is in ruins, cursed by the ripple effect of one terrible act. And it leaves us with this timeless, unsettling question, one that applies to any leader, anywhere. What is the true cost of power when a leader's character fails?